Deep, deep. Yeah. Hidayat bhai too. Yeah. So that's quick.
It's Ranil bhai. It's on your page, right?
Yes, yes.
I don't see it.
Uh,
So should I be on my Facebook or?
we are live and we are visible as well. Okay. Namaskar. Welcome to the third episode of Sitar and Us. You have shown a lot of love to us, and we are really grateful for your attention and your kindness. We have super fantastic musicians representing different gharanas over here. Many of them have been, uh, you know, uh, having you in their audiences for perhaps a longer period of time, some for a shorter period of time, but they're all fantastic musicians and you know about them already. So I'm not going to start introducing about them, but I'm going to start with Kartik Bhaiya, Pandit Kartik Sheshadri. And the question that I have for Kartik Bhaiya is this. Kartik Bhaiya, you have been one of the, most well-known students of Pandit Ravi Shankarji. And you have seen such great masters from those rings. And after listening to these masters, after spending time with your guru, you also found out a sound that is yours. So could you tell us about how you found that sound? Could you talk about your instrument?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Before I say anything, I first want to thank Shubhanil Bhai for bringing us all together. And this is such a beautiful assemblage of, musicians and a community and a fraternity. So I'm, I'm very honored to be here today. So I'm hearing a little echo, but anyway, so I just want to begin that no offense intended. Disciple is a better word than student. A student for me implies somebody who usually goes to a college or pays a fee for something. My relationship to my guru was roughly 50 years, almost 50 years, mostly one-on-ones and learning. So anyway, going back to your question, Shubrani Bhai, I think this whole issue about instrument and finding a voice, first, I think begins on the inside of a musician. It has to do with intention, that it's something that ripens over a timeline where a musician matures. And there is a question that pops up, at least this is my personal opinion and my personal journey in music. The question that pops up is, what is it you want to say with your music? And secondly, how you want to say it. These are the two things. So even before we get to gaiki, that is where we translate that cognitive process to the larynges or to the throat, and then we sing, there is another voice, I think, which actually supersedes that. So that's the voice that actually informs you as a musician, that tells you that you want to do this, and this is how you want to make a statement. It's like an author writing down something where they want to pose a question about something in society or life or a philosophy, or it doesn't matter what the subject is. They need to have a nice pen, of course. But I think the emphasis is first on what is it they want to say. How are they going to make that point? And so the medium obviously has to facilitate that. So if you are a professional vocalist, for example, you might think in terms of the fact that there are certain registers in your voice which are weak, or which are perhaps not even nice by way of timbre. You want to work that. You want it to be adjusted in such a way that you sing so that it has a kind of an impact in the way that you would like to make that statement to the people. So music and phrasing and all this is very connected. I don't think they're different topics, because how you want to say and what you want to say become very important questions. Now, moving on to the instrument, that becomes sorry about that. Moving on to the instrument, the sitar, of course, is a very, beautiful instrument. We all know that. We're all in love with it. For me, my journey in it was from the initial question, which I just talked about, and going through an enormous process of, ordering instruments from various makers in India, every part of India, pretty much. And somehow it was very difficult for me to relate what my personal voice was, which they could understand and give me, And it was a very frustrating process, because it would not either have the right type of, timbre, or it would not have the right type of sustain. It would not have the right type of tension that I need. I'm a guy who's about 5'6", 5'7", but I have humongous hands. I play with a sitar that's, where the action is roughly almost 2 inches from the fret. And I use the number 4 string. The 3 just breaks on me, So there are a lot of things, I tried doing all those things with those instruments, but they never worked. They would just die. They would just collapse on me. Or they would have this kind of a nasalness, which I never liked in instruments in general, even from cellos to violins that I've heard. Because I'm quite acquainted with the Western tradition as well. So after this process of frustration, I said, this is just too much. I've had enough. And one day I went to the Kanelal shop. I've been there many times, but this is the time when Murari was there, Murari Bhai. And I ordered, I think, about 14 instruments from him. And from, of course, the Hiran Roy shop, I think I got 3 or 4 sitars from him. Then I got some from Hemenda. I got some from other makers in different parts of India, but all the renowned makers. And what I did is I stripped them open completely. And I had to see what was being done by each maker and what exactly are they getting at. That's one thing I did. And the second thing I did was to speak with various violin makers, because the West, interestingly, has a very organized way of chronicling its entire instrument making tradition. And the strats that we talk about, the traditions of Guarneris, the violins we talk about, the Torres guitars, they all go back to 300, 400, 500 years. We talk about gharana, but they have an amazing gharana that is documentable, that you can actually go into a library and research. And there are ongoing discussions and conventions where people meet, instrument makers meet, and they talk about how to improve the technology. So this process for me, meeting with different instrument makers was extremely enlightening, because I started to understand how grains work, how different woods work in different ways, how my using this or that is going to facilitate a particular process. Then after that understanding, I took it to my own hands and then started carving out my own, sound board, the tabli as we call it. And I bloodied my hands so many times. I ended up in the ER probably about 5, 6 times, trying to chisel off the, where to keep it thick, where to keep it thin, where you need to have a balance, where you need to have this, that. I was relentless. I was a mad person. And I think that kind of madness probably helped this process. And ultimately, I found my voice, which is, like you say, it has, of course, the chop of my guru, but it is also mine. And that's where it is.
That is so incredible. That you have spent so much time, energy, and of course, money as well, because you love a good sound and you have a sound within you that you want to find through your fingers. And that is very inspiring. So that is one side of the story. So, that we need a very good instrument. So what is a very good instrument? Perhaps also needs to be understood in different levels, perhaps, because a student, if they go for that, they're going to fail miserably, because you were already a maestro when you started working on that and you spent a lot of time doing that. But a student, if they spend so much time, it's going to be completely different. So that brings us to the next question. Shubha, what is your take on that? What is the more important thing for a student?
Namaskar, everybody. And Shubranil Bhai. So thank you again for, having us, all of us, here in one screen. We can see everybody in one screen. That's wonderful. And regarding your question, from what I have learned, I have, as Karthik Bhai said right now, I have tinkered around with instruments also, but not at that level, of course. But what I have learned is that getting the best instrument is a difficult job. It is all about luck. If you are lucky, you have a very, very nice instrument in your hands, which you can just explore, and whatever you feel like playing, you can. But that is not always the case. Okay, as Karthik Bhai has said, he has spent a lot of time with this. But normally, rest of us do not have that amount of time for getting the perfect instrument. What I feel is that, you know, your own touch, your own, I would say, how you produce a sound on your instrument, it depends upon you. And you should know the correct technique of doing it. I feel that the sustain of an instrument, it's all, yeah, the instrument has to be good, but I would say it has 80% of it is your technique, how you do it. You should know the correct technique to get the sustain out of your sitar. Okay, I'll just give you an example. Say, for example, you're not getting a particular a sustain out of your sitar, and that same sitar, you put it into another maestro's hands, and he will get it. How does it happen? It's all about technique. That is what I understand. Okay, but of course, your sitar cannot be just, bland. No, it has to be musical, of course. So regarding the sustain, you can work on the juari. Everybody does that. No, not everybody does that. But I would tell you everybody about this, that do your own juari. I mean, that's the best a sitar player can do regarding the sound. Don't go to a shop and sit there hours on end and ask the maker to do your to the juari. If you do your own juari, you are totally in control of your instrument. So I would say that I would suggest to all youngsters that learn how to do juari. Don't just go and take your sitar to the music shop. Hmm. Juari, of course, yeah.
I think Karthik Bhaiya wants to add something or speak about something over here.
Over here, so let's.
Yeah, thank you. I so agree with you, Shugata Bhai. I do feel technique is a very important facet of it, of course. And at the beginning level, especially, where you're developing your skill as a musician, but that technique and the depth that you develop, your sensibilities, inshallah, you have your, whatever blessing from the divine, or whatever you call it. You still have to mature your inner voice that speaks to the instrument eventually. The instrument is important, of course. Like I said, the pen is important for the author. But then once again, what you want to say is something that you have to ripen over an entire period of time. And then that has to manifest in an instrument. But even if you adjust your technique, it cannot adjust the timbre or the range, for example. So can I give you a little example here? So this involves both technique and an instrumental aspect, and also issues like posture. We don't talk much about posture, and these are all taken for granted. I'm sure it's taught by each guru to their. I mean, great gurus to their disciples. But like curving your fingers, how to know what to do so that you can get the best out of each instrument is very, very, very important. Because let me just give you a short. Sorry, you can have my contour here. It's morning here in California, so let's take Alhea for example. So we also are dealing with the Kharaj Pancham sitar here, which is different than Pancham Gandhar sitar. So if you let's take a Khayal composition like Sumiran, Bhajan Ram. So we all know it. So this can be played this way, or that's on the second intention, or it's less gayaki. But if I want to play it this way, so I'm going from Re to Komal Re. I mean, yeah. This is my intention. I want to do it this way. I don't want to adjust my technique to do it so that I can go here and do it from here. No, my intention is, I need this determination, ये आना ही चाहिए बस इसके बिना ये राग का I don't feel this khayal bandish is being done justice. And if you go to Dhamar, and that's a whole other beast. So you go into a whole other world. Mizazi alag hai. It's a whole other train of thinking. So I feel technique is important, but the instrument at some stage of your musicianship will become an aspect as you become very mature become mature, hopefully.
So yeah, what you are saying is true, and that's why I think Shugatada perhaps wanted to say that for a student, for example, Shugatada talked mainly for a student, because when it's perhaps what he wanted to say was that when it's the time to do all the things that allows you to have a better technique in every possible way, so that you can do all the different elements that are needed for music. Yeah. Sure. Hello.
Sorry, very short point. I feel just.
I just want
Oh,
to I want to dwell on this point again. So what I said was, technique is very important. So, for example, sustain of a note from which fret you're pulling to get a mean. Okay, and you need to have the sustain right until the end of the mean. Here, in particularly in case of means, technique is very important. You should know how to take it so that you will be able to hear the last note. Like, for example, on a sitar, when you are doing a mean, if you want to go and hear the last to the last point of the mean, you can just damp your other strings. Okay. So that is one technique. Okay. Otherwise, you won't be able to hear right up to the end of the mean. So this is just an example. And my what I would like to point out is that uh, an youngster, okay, uh, should not dwell too much on the instrument. Otherwise, it's going to frustrate him. You do your reverse. Okay, you do your reverse regularly without thinking too much about the instrument. As I said, I have gone through this. Thinking too much about the instrument, it's not sounding good. That is, the mean is not coming. It's not sounding good. It will frustrate you. You do your own reverse, it will come automatically. So that's what I have learned from experience. Okay, because I have gone through this. I think everybody has gone through that.
Yes, absolutely. I think I want to add something over here because that is such an incredible thing, and I have an incredible photo for all of you to show. This is Imdad Khan Sahab's Surbahar. Now, if you look at it, I often look at this. Um, you know, it's always on our wall, and I always look at it, and it doesn't really look like it's this incredibly perfectly made instrument, but you sense that this is going to create incredible music for some reason. So why is that? Perhaps is a very important question. And both Kartik Bhaiya and Shubhatoda, what you said brings us to a very important area as well, which is often overlooked, which is this, that after a period of time, we started having strings that were not going to break at high tension. That means it used to have high tensile strength. So the barge of old in any instrument used to be very different from our barge, and the instruments were made in a different way. And of course, with time, the music kept on, evolving. And with time, when it kept on evolving, perhaps because of the strings and advancement of understanding of instrument making, and also great thinkers who put in a lot of their efforts at some point of time to find that perfect voice, it added something to the scene. For example, the craftsmen that we deal with, they learn from somebody like Kanai Lal, Hiren Roy, and these great makers, Hemen Babu, it depends on which instrument. So they learn from there. But Kanai Lal and Hiren Babu, they were working with greats like Pandit Ravi Shankarji. Even before that, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, even before that, they were working with Wahid Khan Sahab and Inayat Khan Sahab and the galaxy of Ustads. So from all gharanas. So perhaps their understanding also came into the craftsman's, knowledge. So Kartik Bhai, I'll come to you. But if I can take that cue and take it to Hidayat Bhai, because Hidayat Bhai has seen one of the most influential of thinkers when it comes to sound, tone, and all these things. It comes to Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab. So if Hidayat Bhai could shed some, light on this, what is your take? What was Khan Sahab's take, and what is your take on this?
Adab bhai, adab everyone. It's such esteemed company, and so again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to understand all these views that people have, and such. It was so interesting listening to Kartik bhai and then Sagata bhai, that they're talking about two very strong pillars of what requires to be a musician. One spoke more about the need of the instrument, the other spoke more about the need of the technique, and both are equally important in different stages of your life. I'm going to start this a little bit more abstract, maybe. There was a Sarigama show, Sarigama का जो show होता है उसमें बहुत ज़माने पहले पंडित जसराज जी was judge on that, और उनके साथ कोई फिल्म वाले कोई म्यूजिक डायरेक्टर कोई थे, मुझे याद नहीं है कौन. तो एक कोई यंग लड़की बहुत अच्छा गाना गाई, सब लोगों ने बड़ी तारीफ करी उसकी. जब करते जब जजेस के पास आए तो जो पंडित जी के साथ जो जज बैठे थे उन्होंने भी बड़ी तारीफ करी, और उन्होंने कहा कि बस आपसे एक रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप अपनी इंडिविजुअलिटी ढूंढें, बिकॉज यू साउंड टू मच लाइक लता जी. और बड़े अच्छे तरीके से उसको एडवाइस दिया. पंडित जसराज जी said something very contradictory. What he said was, he said, देखो बेटा, it's very important to find an ideal, to find that guru early on in your life and completely walk on those footsteps. Blindly follow them. Don't worry about that individuality, because your DNA is you. You will be who you are. Regardless, even if you're your father's son, at the end of the day, there are minute differences, and this music is all about those subtleties. So that difference will come in. So you gave an example, he said, सारी जिंदगी मैंने अमीर खान साहब को फॉलो किया, एक दिन घूम के देखा तो मेरे पीछे भी फौज जमा हुई थी, मैं किस दिन पंडित जसराज बन गया. So as long as you have the right idol to follow, do that. All of these pieces of information that you've gained about technique, I mean, अगर टेक्निक नहीं है हाथ में, regardless आप कैसा भी इंस्ट्रूमेंट किसी को दे दो, क्या करेगा वो. टेक्निक बहुत अच्छी है, अगर इंस्ट्रूमेंट कमजोर है तो they will try and compensate, but you can't compensate. Really, you can't. Another thing I think is very important, because for me, being Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab's son, the constant taaleem, the indirect taaleem that you got was more than even the direct taaleem that you got. What he appreciated, how he sat, how he spoke to. And then it was not just him, all his friends, the people that he was surrounded by, Ustad Bismillah Khan Sahab, Ustad Ali Bar Khan Sahab, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, Kishan Maharaj Ji, Pandit Shanta Prasad Ji, all of these people, I mean, the kind of conversations they had with each other, the etiquette that they maintained with each other, the clarity of thought that they had. Because आज के ज़माने में आप किसी भी घराने से belong करते हैं, आप अमीर खान साहब के शागिर्द नहीं हैं, क्योंकि हम सब अमीर खान साहब को फॉलो करते हैं. सो क्लैरिटी ऑफ थॉट अगर आपके दिमाग में आ जाए, ऐसे जितने भी बुजुर्ग हैं, हम सब अब्बा को फॉलो करते हैं, हम सब पंडित जी को फॉलो करते हैं, हम उनके शागिर्द हैं, सबके शागिर्द हैं हम. Because आज we are so influenced by everyone's music is so prevalent in us. So what is very important is the clarity of thought. If you're playing a phrase, if you're singing a phrase, where is it inspired from? If you're honest to that, then acknowledge it, play it like that, emulate it, and eventually figure it out how it sits in your personality, how it sits in your hands. मैं कार्तिक भाई का साज लेके जिस तरीके से उन्होंने रिखब से निखात खूबसूरती से खींचा है, मैं वो नहीं खींच पाऊंगा. लेकिन रिगार्डलेस रिखब से आप खींच रहे हैं या आप धैवत से खींच रहे हैं या आप गंधार से खींच रहे हैं, जो आपका आइडिया है, जो आपकी इंटेंशन है, if you're not getting that across, that then there is a problem. Now, whether that requires technique, or whether that requires an instrument, or whether that requires clarity of thought, or it requires all of those things to come together. And another very important thing that I saw Abba especially give importance to is tuning the sitar. जिस तरीके से आप सितार मिलाइएगा, उससे आपको बहुत फर्क पड़ेगा. पहले सा की जमीन सेट करें, उसके बाद अगर आप कोमल निखात बुलवाना चाह रहे हैं तीव्र गंधार से, तो उसकी फ्रीक्वेंसी समझो कि तीव्र गंधार पे पर्दे पे आपने अगर आपने उंगली रख दी और उस पे कोमल निखात बोल रही है, तो क्या फ्रीक्वेंसी की तरफ मिलानी पड़ेगी आपको, जो जरा सी चढ़ी हुई है, जरा सी उतरी भी है। रिखब से पंचम तो बोलती है, रिखब से तीव्र मध्यम अगर बुलवाना है तो उसको क्या करना पड़ेगा?
Say, Hidayat Bhai, if you could repeat that in English, because I think there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be tuning in from other parts of the world.
Right. So notes are frequencies, and they resonate like chords do, right? So there are certain things that are natural frequencies that resonate. We play sitar, so we understand that because of the tarabs underneath. So how important is it to tune the instrument in the right way, for the right effect, for the right tonality, for the right atmosphere to come out? And especially in our sitar, which is the Gandhar Pancham or the Vadi Samvadi note sitar, because we don't use a tanpura. We play an open strum. So the moment we strum the sitar, that the rag should stand, the rag should be visible. So if you want, so I was giving an example of when you play Re, Pancham sounds, I mean, it's easy to do that, but it's very hard to make Tivar Madhyam sound come from Tivar Rikhab. So there's understanding frequencies, because there is a certain frequency that will connect, which is not going to be pure Re, which is not going to be pure Madhyam. But in case you want that frequency and that element in tonality to come up, what do you have to do? So maybe you have to sharpen the Rikhab a little bit, or maybe reduce the Madhyam a little bit, that together the frequency sounds that. And regarding tuning also, I would really request all the sitar players to stop tuning to 440. We need to do that for fusion music and when we're collaborating with others. But if you really hear the timbre of your instrument, it'll speak to you. Sometimes it's C, sometimes it's C sharp, sometimes it's a little between, sometimes it's a little higher. And also when you travel, the temperature, the moisture, and all of that makes a difference. If you just do that little adjustment, may not make sense to the younger musicians coming up, but as you mature, it'll start making sense to you. If you do that, you'll see the sitar will respond back to you in many different ways that it hasn't otherwise, because you're forcing it on to a place where it doesn't belong. So Karthik Bhai's instrument, the reason why it is what it is because not just because, see, luck is not luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So he prepared a lifetime to come over here and get that instrument. And then, you know, it happens. So there's technique to it, there is instrument to it, there's a whole bunch of things to it. And unfortunately, classical music is an individual journey. So beyond a certain point, you have to figure out your own way.
Kya baat hai?
Very
Karthik
nicely
Bhaiya.
said.
Very nicely said, Karthik Bhaiya.
So I completely agree with you, Hidayat Bhai, and with Shugato Bhai. I think we're all on the same page. But to come to a clarity of what we're talking about and to cut to the chase, I think a person's, when I was speaking about a person's maturing of the inner voice and sensibility, we're talking about their ability to understand the intricacies of tuning, understand the intricacies of which note is going to resonate with which note, because those things cannot be standardized. Each sitar will be different. Some sitars will respond differently from a certain, shruti to another note, and some others will just not do it. You cannot make it do something that it cannot do. So that's one point. The second thing I wanted to say is the crisis that we're talking about as musicians is something quite universal, and I want to give you a little anecdote here. During the times of during the invention of the piano, prior to the invention of piano, this is during the times of Mozart, he used to play on a keyboard that was quite different than the piano as we understand it today. And Beethoven came after Mozart, and he tried playing on those pianos that Mozart was playing on. But his compositions were such that when he would play a chord or a block chord or whatever that is, it would break the strings because he was ziddi. He wanted a certain dynamic from the instrument that could go from complete pianissimo, which is very, very soft, to a triple forte, which is just crazily high in volume. That was his mizaz. And that mizaz is equally something your instrument has to be able to adapt. You also have to have technique. Without that, you cannot, obviously extract what you want. Extract sounds very bad, but, explore, I guess is a better word. Explore the potentialities of an instrument. So no matter what instrument you are given, you should be able to tap the best out of it. But the question is, one shoe doesn't fit everybody. So my sitar may not fit someone else. Khan Sahib's sitar may not fit someone else. I've played my own Guruji's instrument. It doesn't suit me, but I love the tone of it. So I wanted to get something like that, but equally, this had to be my own voice. But I would say this, on a general level for students, I think it is good to have a good standard of instruments where they can precisely develop these kinds of sensibilities that we're talking about. The equal temperament, the 440, which Hidayat was saying, is an artificial tuning. It was done before the times of Bach. 1685 is when he was born. And he devised an entire system of harmony. And that got imported into India, and we use it on a harmonium, we do it on a sitar, and we become accustomed to a way of hearing music, which is no longer about Shruti. There is that Ati Komal and Chari Rishabh, ये सब बहुत सारे श्रुति के बात है, So when my guru used to teach me, Guruji used to teach me, he was so Shruti conscious. The word Shruti is so important. And this is not about getting mystical and religious and all that kind of thing. But that word has great import, even in Carnatic music, for example, which is a tradition which we should not leave out, because when we talk about Indian classical music, it is very important to understand the entire gamut of our tradition, how it has developed over a course of many thousand years, the various changes it's gone through, what exactly was meant philosophically by the term Shruti, and today what does it mean in terms of practice? It means pitch, it means the intervals that are not the fixed intervals, but the oscillating ones, or things in between, flatter than flat, sharper than sharp, more komal than komal, more tivra than tivra, jo bhi hai. So ye sab samajh aane ke baad, you can get the best out of the instrument, whatever size you have. But as a starting point, I think it's good to have a standard of instruments where musicians can be encouraged to develop exactly those kinds of faculties we are talking about. And that's where the crisis is sort of, at least in my time. I think now we have a better, class of instrument makers. I'm seeing a lot of people post different things on social media and this and that. And I think the scene is hopefully reviving back. But it has to be a mix of all of those ingredients.
So that's a wonderful, I would say, wish. Hopefully things are going to get revived, but we are not going to get back our huge, gigantic trees. So we are not going to get the same timber anymore. So, which is one issue that we have got. But of course, so many things have improved. And I think what comes to the mind is this dialogue from Mughal-e-Azam, where Salim says, अगर उमर खयाम के रुबाई सुनहरे वर्क के जगह पथरीली जमीन पे लिख दी जाए तो क्या उसके मायने बदल जाते हैं? So it's something like that. If the words you're saying, if the content you're presenting, I mean, in a very intellectual way, let's use the word content, the things that you're saying, does it have silsila? Does it have beautiful phrasing? Is it really conforming to the character of the raga, or is it just a scale being played in the name of a raga? Are we maintaining all the beautiful points, like stopping on the right place and having that character intact, that we know as a raga? So with that, I would love to go to Anupama from there, but Shugotada had to say something. Please, Shugotada, please go on, then I will go to Anupama.
No, I just wanted to mention this, as Karthik Bhai said, not all sitars are same. Sitars, being an acoustic instrument, will have some dead spots. Okay, so it is true that not all the tarabs will sing on a particular sitar, unless you just open it up, scrape the tabli a little bit from the bottom, then you can do it. But that is why, in our world, in our Hindustani or classical world of sitar making craftsmanship, nothing is standardized. That's the biggest problem. In the Western world, almost everything is standardized. You get a standard instrument like Stradi, and it'll almost sound the same. Of course, it won't sound the same in everybody's hands because everybody's touch is different. But in our case, what we feel is that standardization of instrument making dimensions. If this can be done, as Kaka has said, you can have, out of say 10 sitars, you can have 8 very good sitars. Okay, so Karthik Bhai, do you agree with this standardization?
I do. With that, the
It's
point I was making is,
yeah.
for the students, a basic level of standardization is important because otherwise they cannot develop the faculties we're talking about, like what Hidayat was saying, or to know what to extract from which note and what to. Now, there was a great saying Raga Khan Sahib said, first you have to learn to listen, then you have to listen to learn. End of discussion. This is the story of our music. First, we have to learn to listen, and then we have to listen to learn. And without that faculty, we won't be able to do it. So, speaking of studies, there's a saying in the West that you can give a strad to a monkey, but it will not sound the same. So, they have actually done studies where they have taken virtuoso, violinists, and they have given the same strad blind, without telling them which strad it is. Stradivarius made about, I think, 300 instruments total. So those are all gems. They're sold for millions and millions, and they're left in museums, and they're sort of, rented to the artists for the time that they're alive, and then they're taken back by the museum. And then this is such a lovely system. But they have maintained instruments for 300, 400 years, which they play on. But we don't even have a sitar that's consistent. It's changed over even the last 30, 40, 50 years. So there are a lot of things to talk about. That could be a whole nother,
episode. That is opening up ideas what we should be doing for the next episode, right? So one thing that I would add over here. Sorry, Shugata, please go on.
No, just one thing, and I think everybody will agree to this, and that is sitar is a much more complex instrument than a violin. Okay, so what I feel is that because of the resonant strings, okay, it's such a complex instrument. So getting or standardizing a sitar is very difficult. I would say getting sitar to sound beautiful is much difficult than getting a strat to sound beautiful.
I think I think I understand what you're saying, and in this way that normally instruments are made with different kinds of wood, and the wood stretches and expands and contracts and all this thing it does in a very natural way. But we are also dealing with a gourd, and the gourds are never made. I mean, you cannot have the same shape of the gourd, so it changes everything. Hidayat bhai, please go on.
I would really want to hear from Anupama ji and Deep Shankar bhai and Ayan bhai, because we'll end up talking forever. This is such a vast topic.
Yes. You pointed out the right thing. Yeah, let's go back to that point about phrasing and all the things that we talked about ragdari, and how playing just a scale is perhaps not our music, and what you do and what your Guruji taught you how to deal with that. Anupama.
First of all, namaste to everybody, and it's such a wonderful discussion. I just want to be the audience, of course, listening to everybody's viewpoints, and it is incredible because learning from my Guruji, Pandit Bimalendu Mukherjee, who we were in Bhilai, which was a very small town. Okay, there was no sitar makers in our in our city. Going to Kolkata was like one big thing. So I had seen from the very beginning my Guruji sitting with the instruments, working on the instrument himself. And Jawari to hai hi, uske alawa he would have some sitar maker come home, open up the sitars, do everything. And then of course that process was furthered, and we all know how Pandit Budhaditya Mukherjee had worked again, just as Karthik ji has worked on 30-40 sitars. Budhaditya also has, he said, at least some odd 23 sitars he has ripped open, and he has really worked and found his. So now he says that I don't play the sitar plays me. And that is something that really is incredible, because I also he did give me that sitar to play, but that brings again the fact about the touch, right? I don't have his touch, so that same sitar in my hands was probably not sounding the same as what it would sound in his hands, right? So there again the technique, there again the individual way of dealing, the individual strokes, everything would come in play. The same sitar, so I with all this thing, I also put forth my point that maybe I will have to discover my own sitar for myself, because then only I will do justice to my playing style with my instrument, which I want the voice to be. So that quest is still going on. I have, as I said, I have worked with some 9 or 10 instruments myself, and I am kind of getting there, but not yet. So that's my story. And there comes again when I met Hidayat ji for the first time in Princeton, when I had come there because I think Sanjay Rikhiram was there working on, maybe if I remember right, he said this was the sitar that Khan Sahab played. So I saw that, and then I asked Hidayat bhai about what would Ustad ji say about Riyaz and about everything. So I remember that time Hidayat bhai said that Abba Mizrab ke bare mein bahut जोर देते थे कि मिजराब बहुत जरूरी है. मतलब मिजराब meaning, I think what you mean was strokes, the right hand, and the emphasis of right hand with the left hand, and how the technique. So I mean, we all have listened to the great maestros, Pandit ji and Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, who have taken the sitar to like a different dimension altogether. And what we are just trying to do is, what they have shown the light, and we are trying to just be guided by that light. But at the same time, the strokes. So my Guruji would always, again coming to what Shugatoda was saying about technique, so sometimes we feel that there's a lot of force that we have to play, because we have to play with a lot of vigor. We have to play with a lot of, the gamaks have to come really strong and bold and everything. And it needs a lot of physical strength, probably, is what the idea is. But I clearly remember how I would be struggling with some taan or, some phrase, and Guruji would just say, Mizrab ko thoda aise angle kar le, just make it a certain angle, just do, put a little bit of accent in what you're playing at a certain point, and it will change the picture. And that's how it used to happen. So that right technique at the right time, with the awareness of the sound, is the actual, like the key, is what we all know, we all experience. But unfortunately, probably for a beginner, if we overwhelm them with so much of information, then it may. But of course, we are not talking here as beginners, we are talking here as matured musicians. And still many of us, like I'm speaking for myself, we have this quest for sound. We have this quest where we want to express what my expression or thought of a phrase of a rag can bring in. Now, again, it was a beautiful example what Karthik ji showed, like how he wanted to have that Komal Nishad from Re, because that gives the depth of the sound, which would not be there from the, if I play the Komal Nishad or from Ga even. I do need that depth or that uh, force, which will only be applicable if I am doing so, knowing from where the mean has to be pulled, as Shugatoda had also mentioned, knowing where we are going to. Now, there is a very typical thing that I see in most of the, like we have this tendency to just play very obvious gamaks or obvious stance, like say from the fret of re, which is very easy, and from the fret of the, which is very easy again. But probably very few of us, we try different phrases from, from all the frets. Like, so basic riyaz again takes a place there. And the exact combination of the right and left hand and the speed of the phrase, at the same time where I am stroking, where I'm giving the stroke, if it is just a same khatka, but if I'm striking it at a different point, it gives a very different expression. So knowing these subtle things and applying them in the development of a rag, or knowing this. And also another thing I always was encouraged by Guruji was never understand a rag in just in terms of a phrase by phrase. So it is the question here, if I, with your permission, I would like to take it to a direction where the silsila is very important. So Guruji always used to say that, as a musician, if you play a phrase or if you play a note, then it has to lead to another one on its own, and to develop that subconscious to a point where you are led by the music is very important, and that will actually give that way you are able to tell a story in a rag or whatever, so what you are trying to play. So that is very important. And when you are trying to play a story, then a good instrument is also very important, a good technique is also important. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. You have mentioned a few technical terms. I think it would be important to explain. One that you have used is silsila, which is continuity in short form in English, and in an easier way. But you also have used the word khatka. So Shugotada, if you can give some examples of what khatka is, so that people can understand about it. And do you use khatka, and when do you use khatka? How do you phrase?
Sorry, Subramanian, I think Hidayat ji, did you have anything to say? You raised
Yeah. Hidayat bhai, please go on.
Can I just,
If I may just very quickly just say something that Anupama ji was saying, and then I'll
okay.
give it to Sagadada. Silsila, what she was talking about, is such an important thing in music, and especially when it comes to instrumental music, because the clarity of our head, the picture in our head of the phrase that we're playing and of the whole concert is so important, because when we are connecting with an audience, we're not giving them any other cues. I mean, in a movie, there's a script, there's a scene, there's a hero, heroine, there's an action sequence, what is going on. With a theater, it comes down. With dance, it's yet more audience participation. Vocal music, you're listening to Sufi music, you're listening to bhajan or thumri, or even in khayal, it gives you a feeling with the lyrics. Instrumental music is giving you nothing. So your imagination and your silsila in that imagination, how that, especially Abba used to say that how does that picture come in mind, is if you visualize every phrase of yours, visualize it like a movie, whether it is scenic, whether it's a love story, whether it's a tragedy, whatever. If you see it like one scene, another scene, another scene, another scene, then there's a relativeness to it. And that is so important, I feel, especially for instrumental musicians. So just sort of Anupama ji reminded me of something what I used to say. That's why I wanted to interject.
Kya baat hai? Beautifully said.
Nicely. Yeah. Anupama, whatever you said was said very, very nicely. And Hidayat Bhai also, just made such nice comments. But unfortunately, I'll have to leave. So what I'm going to do is, I'll be on. Okay. So I'll try to join in a little bit later. Okay. So because I'm watching
We want
everything.
you. We want
Yeah.
you, Shubhatullah.
I'll have to drive to somewhere, but
Okay.
I'll be watching this, and I think it's going to be okay. Okay. So
that's
with everybody's permission, I'm leaving right now, but I hope to join again. Okay.
Please.
Thank
please.
you. Thank you.
Okay, Shubhatullah.
Okay.
So from there, beautiful things have been said. I think we are reaching those areas. Like, for example, so khatka was mentioned, and as we say, ways of beautification, alankars that are used in our music. Perhaps there are people in our audience who might not be understanding this technical term. So if Deep, if you would want to express or show us any of the alankars, you can show Krintan or Khatka, Zamzama, whatever you want to. If you are in the mood, only then.
Yeah, surely. Thank you,
And
Shubhananda.
also, my question will be that how, in your tradition, which very weirdly but so beautifully, it's also coming from Bande Ali Khan Sahab's side, and then there are so many, it just spread in so many different directions. But how things changed as well, right? So in your tradition, your tradition's handling is completely different from perhaps most of the other gharanas, and you still try to maintain that. So if you could give some examples, and if you could say how Ustad Abdul Halim Jafar Khan Sahib used to see music.
Sure. Ayan wants to say something. Ayan.
Yes, Ayan.
Am I audible? Can you hear
Yes.
You're audible, but it's slightly low. If you could come closer.
Is it okay now?
It's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just I want to add, because Deepda is going to show us. So he's an expert in showing jamjamas and Clinton. I personally like him, so that's why I raised my hand. So if you could please.
Yeah, but,
the vision.
wow, we have.
First of all, please accept my regards, because to listening all of you is like I'm enriching myself, and thank you, Shubhanilda, for giving this opportunity for the second time to enrich myself, because you all have so much of experience you have, and you're sharing with us. So that's
We are in
where
it together.
really
We are in
blessed.
it together.
Yeah, and what you have said, that I'm disciple of my father and my dada guru. So my dada guru has a style which is different from others, and we even at the point I was trying to copying him. I'm just trying to copying how we making a phrase and something. So one day he called me and he said, "Don't try to copy me, because that's my own feeling. You follow me, don't copy me." Because he knew that it's not possible for me to copying him, the whole thing. So what I did, and then my father. So I have the playing style of my father. It's a different from my dada guru. Though we are following the same style, but the interpretation of notes, the bandish, the tans, the tihais, whatever, he has a personal voice of his own. And also he was very curious about the sound of sitar, and that's what we all talked about. So there is something which in our gharana will just show, though it's like I tuned my sitar in Kirwani. So that is fine. So, like I have listened Dadaji starting alap like this way. In our gharana, we play alap little bit higher tempo. We started in a higher tempo. So it's like
ভালো হচ্ছে, বাহ, বাহ।
so, as Owen says, Zamzama, there is so these are the things which Dadaji used in such a way that it became his own style. So maybe
So
some other students,
what I have a question over there, because music is such a
I can't,
vast.
I can't hear you. Sugoto Kaku, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
perfect. Deep, music is such a huge subject, as we all know, and if I can ask now, because if it moves to other direction, I won't be able to ask. So what, I mean, was there a need for him to call this something, or did he normally call this something? This way of handling, this combination of many techniques together, did he
Yeah.
have a name for it?
Yes, it's already there. No, it's Zafar Khani Baj. Why Zafar Khani Baj? Because how he learned from his gurus and how he is playing, it's different. He has his own interpretation. Because now, if I want to start an alap, maybe I will start like. There is no written rule that I have to start alap. If I'm playing Zafar Khani Baj, I have to start alap like this. This is his interpretation towards Kirwani. My interpretation may be like this. Even my father also allowed me to do this. So he said that this, you have to mention one thing, that you have to play in sur and tal first and foremost, and also the essence of the gharana should be there. It's not that that you have copying a record from 1968 and you are playing the same thing. I think Karthik ji wants.
No, I think no. So Deep, that's
and also
beautiful.
one thing I want to add,
go on.
About this sitar thing, no. So,
I love that.
My father, Pandit Harashankar Bhattacharya ji, he does his own jawari, and also we all do, because we have to travel out abroad, and there is nobody who can help us over there when after concerts the jawari is gone. So recently he went to Kashmir, so he was staying in a houseboat, and there is a block of wood this size. So he asked to the houseboat owner that, can I get this wood? So he was said, why you need this? He said, I am a musician, I want to make a jawari out of it. So he gave it to him. My father came back and he make a jawari out of it. And he was saying that, I don't know whether it will sounds good or not, but let's try. And believe me, the first time he put that jawari on the sitar, the sound is amazing. It was nobody knows it will come out like this way. It's a wooden jawari, and we got 12 of that, and the sound of that wood is something. So this is why I'm sharing this, because he doesn't need to look at those woods for jawari. in his mind. He can't get out of the music or the sitar thing. Once you are attached with this instrument or anything, anything you love, it's not possible to get out of that scene, whether you are in Kashmir or Switzerland, whatever.
Hidat bhai.
So, we've been talking about instrument, wood, and all of these things a lot, but we're at a time where there's a lot of technology available to us. I personally use some sort of a plastic synthetic material bridge because it lasts really long. And Sanjay Bhai does my jawari, and my sitar is also of his father, Ricky Ramji's sitar, which is about 25, 30 years old now. And I've had Sanjay Bhai install a mic into inside the tomba. When we were using attached microphones on top, I was getting a lot of mid sound to it, and with this attached microphone inside the tomba. I'm not a very technical person in terms of, I don't really know how to do javari. Again, for the I mean, there are different ideologies. Nothing is right and nothing is wrong. Abba discouraged us from doing our own javari. He said you should know the work, but let the person whose job it is do the job. So in a bind, yes, I can take a file and work my way through, but also but on the other hand, we were trained in a very specific way how to do the stringing of the instrument, how to do the goonj, how many times it should circle on top, because all of those things matter at the end of the day. So I think technology today plays a huge part, and amplification plays a huge part. I think for a musician, for a sitar player, to understand a little bit about that so they can communicate with the sound man and understand what setting they're performing in, what they're performing in, would really sort of help take the tone and what they're looking for from. See, you have to have a very clear idea of what you're trying to project, right? Deep Bhai said something about Jafar Khani Baj, right? There's a clarity to what that great man, that Ustad's thought process was, and that's visible like this. Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, Pandit Ravi Shankar Ji, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, you take any of these great maestros, the reason why their tonality, their everything comes is because they know beforehand what they want to project, and the moment they project it, it's so strong that we feel it. We don't even hear it, we feel it. So when a musician gets their clarity to that level, then all of those things sort of come in place.
Convergence, absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, to add to that point.
Yes, please.
So only when we are talking about this sound, our own voice and our own sound, the clarity which Hidat Bhai just said, that has to be the first thing that has to come in mind, that I need this particular sound. Now, when, like as I was mentioning, Pandit Budhayati Mukherjee, he said he knew exactly what sound he wants. What is happening nowadays is in this quest of, I mean, with with great like Karthik ji and Budhayati having worked through this, now people, without even knowing about what sound they want, I have seen some students come to me and they are telling, you know what, I want a sitar which I want to have my sound. Then I asked them, like, what is your sound that you're looking for? Something deep, something bassy, something, they have no idea what they're talking about, because it's just it has become like a fashion now to to talk about it in that way.
Custom made, right?
Yeah. So again, it boils down to the same thing, that we have to have that quest for and the clarity of what we are looking for eventually, which, as Deep said, like Ustad Halim Zafar Khan Sahab had. Yes, Karthik ji, please.
Yeah, Karthik bhai, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Anupama Behan. So I think that's, I guess, what I was trying to imply in the beginning of the conversation, that it's the inner voice that has to inform everything else. And that is the first gayaki that happens, actually. It's beyond your gala. It's somewhere in the subconscious layers of your musicianship, and you have to develop that. And to Hidayat Bhai's point, I have always felt when I have sat with my Guruji, who was a unflinching purist, in the sense that he would never compromise a single shruti in a raga or take liberties with it. Like in Sabat dance, people I see doing things which I don't approve. I'll just state it very honestly. But he would show things, for example, in Ati Vilambit, it's like time-lapse photography. So every detail and nuance of what is going on is revealed in it. There's no hiding. You cannot hide behind the layers of. So this Kharaj alap, going into Pancham Kharaj, and coming to the systematic development of alap, Mahar style. We are getting into style now. And I'm not passing a judgment on anything. I'm just talking in the sense of how to get most out of the instrument. The way you can is to think about it conceptually, like what Hidayat was saying. So for me, when I was learning, when I am still am, with my guru, though he moved on in 2012 from an earthly plane, I still feel I get talim from him in some ways or the other. I always feel that the thing I have found most useful is to not take the material of what your guru has taught you. That is, of course, important. But for me, it is to think about how they think about music. That has been more important than actually, being a parrot to what somebody is teaching and playing that sargam or palpa. Those are techniques you're going to develop, of course. You have to, because otherwise you will never get the best out of your instrument. But the thought process that goes into it, which we have all been sharing, the clarity that all the people we revere so much had, and some do. And that is what we have to inculcate, and that is what the students should be asked to inculcate. Because like what Anupama Behan was saying, if people just come and say, I want a tone that is, deep, and uska matlab kya hai? It has no meaning. Deep in what sense? So these are subjective terms. Ultimately, an instrument can also teach you. This is very important to know this. It's not that we want an instrument that is in a particular type, in a way, but an instrument teaches you a lot. It teaches you, hey, do this, go about it this way. And you combine the music, the concept that you have developed, and you mature and you ripen. And you also learn from your instrument with its limitations and with its, whatever things it can offer you. And then you come to some kind of a perspective, some balance in life where you realize, hopefully, that this is what you need. And you go about your instrument and you go about your music in that kind of a way. Anyway.
Deep. So, Deep, I think you have something to add. After you add, we are going to ask Oyon a very interesting question related to this.
Actually, just to take it from Karthik ji, what I was saying that the sitar teaches you, and also he mentioned that. So there's an example of it. Some month back, I got a new Jawari, I told you. So it brings the sustain more. So now what is happening that before I was using sustain in the duration was less, but now the duration is more. So I'm playing with that sustain. So
exactly.
So suddenly it feels like the alap where I wanted to play with that sustain. It increased and it gives me another time to complete my showcase my feelings. So just to add on with this, it just came in my mind, so I just added it.
One very small point here.
Yes,
so,
sure.
Jawari, we are talking about Jawari and this thing. Just what Guruji used to say that Jawari is like makeup, but the inherent beauty is the instrument. So that is something that Jawari say definitely the sound will get enhanced, but it is up to a level of the makeup, But
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I mean, that's a beautiful way of saying that. And I think the audience who are listening to us are also getting some clarity about this issue about sound and technique and how to deal with that and why talim is so important. And without that, nothing makes sense, because you might have all the things, but you cannot do anything with that without the proper talim. So, which is the most important thing, I think, and that's what Hidayat Bhai has also said. Yeah, and everybody, knows about it, but it's very important that one gets proper talim. And Oyun, so it it brings us to you. You follow another great style. I mean, of course, you follow many other styles and elements of other musicians, which is normal. But inside you, I can see that there's a love for one great maestro, which is very strong. So tell me about your love and how you see phrasing on your instrument. How do you do Vistar? And what did you do with your instrument? Did you build your own instrument, or you had an instrument given by your guru, or you found out a fantastic instrument that responds to you? What is it? Tell me your story.
Thank you, Subranilda. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here with you all.
Pleasure.
My namaskar to everybody, to all the eminent maestros sitting over here, Deepda, my elder brother, Subranilda, of course. Uh, yeah, I started learning when I was 8 years old, 8 or 9 maybe. So I belong to a family where there is music, there was music, but not in a very professional way. My grandfather was still alive. He was a vocalist. But interestingly, he just he it was his dream that he asked me to pick up the sitar, and one day he purchased a very single sitar, I mean small sitar, and I started learning. Then my first guru was Pandit Manilal Nagji. I took talim from him for 5 years. Then I learned from Pandit Kushal Das ji. Yeah. So when I was learning over the years, I mean, in the initial stage, after 4 to 5 years, I was listening to all the great maestros. I mean, only my because my subject was sitar, so my grandfather or my father, they brought me all the CDs or cassettes of Ustad Vilayat Khan, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji, Pandit Manilal Nagji, everybody, Halim Jawar Khaza. I still had their CDs and cassettes, everybody. But the sound of Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji somehow over the years, when I was just learning, completed 6 to 7 years or 8 years of sitar, that attracted me somehow. I don't know. So I started purchasing
Sorry,
more and more.
I'll just ask one thing over here,
Yeah.
just for clarity.
Yeah.
By sound, do you mean the sound of the instrument, or the way of playing, or the combination of both?
Yeah, the way. Yeah, the way of
Okay, the way.
of his. I mean his style of playing, his the voice he had in his sitar. So that somehow attracted me, and I was just searching, because I still remember he had the series of famous renditions of Ragesri. I mean all the releases from the All India Radio archival, just like he's holding the Kharaj Pancham, that famous portrait. And I still remember that I remember I started learning the exact phrases, the exact gaps, the exact pause. Just I want to I was just trying to learn the way he was playing the phrases, the way he was trying to play the bowls, the tans. But somehow in the back of my mind, I was asking myself that this isn't the right way. Actually, this isn't the right way. You have to have a guide. You have to have a mentor. You have to have a guru who will show you this way of, I mean, the way of Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji uh, just thought, and he created his individuality. Then in 2011, I joined ITC ASRA Sangeet Research Academy as a scholar. and I started learning from Pandit Partho Chatterjee ji, who is my current guru. So he had a direct connection with Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji, because he learned from him and associated with him for a couple of years, for a long couple of years. So after learning, now I can feel, after learning from him, taking talim, I can now realize the way Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji thought of how he differentiated with the I mean from the two greats. One Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, another Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Ustad Halim Zafar Khan Sahab, how he differentiated his and contributed to Indian classical music. So from the talim from my guru actually helped me to think in details of the intricate details of Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji.
Kya baat hai?
Yeah.
So that.
I have a
Oh, sorry,
question
Anupam.
to
Please go
Ayan,
on. Yeah,
sorry.
please, please.
Anupama ji, please.
So can you explain, I mean, for me as well as for some of the audience as
Yeah.
well, like what was the difference was there any difference in the sitar itself? Like I know that he tuned the sitar to D, whereas, or maybe close to D, or much at a higher pitch than
Less,
what Panditji.
but not in perfect D, as far as I heard from
Yeah,
my
but it was
guru.
higher than
Less,
Panditji and what Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab used to tune to, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Slight different. Slight higher.
Anything else was also different? Like, was there another string added or something like that? I mean, there are different
No,
versions of
as far as sitar is concerned, he used to play the Pancham Kharaj sitar, like Pandit ji style, Ravi Shankar ji style. Yeah, but the way I think what I felt, because I think I don't deserve to speak about him, but okay, Subranilda just gave me this tough job. So
No,
what
we
I
want to
feel that
hear your story. What you feel. That is
yeah,
also important.
I think he had the amalgamation of the elements of both Pandit Ravi Shankar ji style and Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab style, because I heard from my guru that days and days when Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji was young, he was hearing Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, and days, and he was just, I think I heard that in his house he was just walking and thinking that sorry.
Yeah. You finish it. After that, I'll say, because Karthik Bhaiya has something to add or ask. So
Okay.
Go on.
So
Or
he had the amalgamation of both the elements of the musical content of both Vilayat Khan Sahab and Ravi Shankar ji in his style. The last but not the least, what just added as the cherry on the cake, that
Amir Khan
was that was the I think everybody knows that the style he deeply influenced by the Gayaki of Ustad Amir Khan Sahab. So and that I think completely changed the style of his playing. The phrases, the progressions, the barhat silsila.
the
The continuity.
all those. Yeah, beautiful. They're beautiful.
The tankaris also. The
Yeah,
tankaris, everything. He had everything. He thought in details. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ayan, so I have heard that there was an 8th string also added in some of the Pandit Nikhil Banerjee ji's style. Was there any 8th string also that was added apart
No,
from the
actually,
standard?
No, the peg that was there, no string was tied in that. I heard from my guru. Then it was only there as a show. Yeah, because I think the sitar, the earlier sitar, the old sitar which he used to play in his earlier days, that sitar was a long and a huge sitar. So that was the peg that was in the top of the sitar. That was no string was tied in the peg. It was only there as a
and
showcase.
During adjustment, I think he also brought the ara to the front so that he could adjust that. And after that, it has somehow become the format as well, where people do. But perhaps it was needed for him. It was needed for that. So, Karthik Bhaiya, please.
Oh, just a very short remark. One of the things which I do have to pay my respects to is Baba Alauddin Khan Sahab. And in that every disciple he created, they were different. There was not one that resembled the other. So if you think about my Guruji, Pandit Ravi Shankarji, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahib, Ma Annapurna ji, if you think about Nikhilda, they all sound different. And because Baba himself was a confluence of so many different styles, and he was able to hone each disciple according to their own strengths and weaknesses. And so this is, I think we should do another chapter on this, because how should we be a guru is very important.
We are going to do that. Of course, we are going to do that.
Yeah, how should we be a guru? Is it like giving group lessons? Is it like giving one-on-one instruction? Is it? I was lucky. I had Ekayek Talim. I had to chase my guru to get the kind of. He was lucky. He went to my head and he stayed for 7 years. My Guruji was touring the world. He was one day in this part of the world, another day in another part of the world. So I had these group things, and then I had most of my training was one-on-one with him, whether it was 80s in the West, 90s in Encinitas, touring with him, Jogi hai. So, but that one-on-one instruction to be honed is so important, because that's the way your hands develop, and you get the right guidance to be instructed so that you can form your own identity. And inspiration has to come from the guru. Without that, nothing is possible.
I think, any disciple needs to be like the taraf of the mainstream. Mainstream is your guru, and you need to be the taraf.
Absolutely.
So that is found. Otherwise, there is no time. I mean, this time of a maestro is very important, and we should be respecting that. And without that, it's not possible. It means that you have been that in his life, that you were the taraf in his life. That's why he gave you time. And Hidayat bhai, you had something to say, please.
So a couple of things actually. एक तो हम tone की बात कर रहे थे, and sitar के tone की बात हो रही थी, and I had one of the most riveting and interesting conversation myself, Ram bhai, had with Pandit Budheta Mukherjee. It is on YouTube. I highly recommend everyone that's watched this go watch that interview, because Dada has spoken about tonality and I mean, one thing is talking about it, and the other thing is actually doing it. And for me personally, he's the foremost sitar player today who's really working with the entire dimension of tone in the sitar. And whatever times I've heard him, it's blown my mind away. And then to hear him talk about it, and the way not just give you ideas of techniques and everything, but hear the love in his voice of talking about tone, which will teach you so much more than what the words are actually saying. The tonality of his voice and the way his eyes get, it's just remarkable. So please go watch that.
Absolutely.
जब गुरु के बारे में बात हुई, तो I saw everyone, Karthik bhai raised a very good point, and everyone went like this. I personally feel very, very strongly about this. Okay, somehow or the other, because again, growing up with Abba and being surrounded by all these great maestros, one thing that I feel in after that generation, the time has changed a lot, is conversation. Nowadays, gurus don't have a conversation with their students. They tell them what to do. They expect them to do exactly that. They go away. They come back and say, if you've played one note out of place from what they've taught you, they're upset about it. Whereas, hamare time pe, the guru used to come to us and give us an idea. So, beta, isko bithao. Get this idea sorted. Now tell me where you can take this. And they would have a conversation. Abba would have a conversation with all of his students. Why this direction is good, why it's not good. What are the aesthetic rules? What are the non-aesthetic rules? What are things that you should do in? So that exchange of ideas taught us creativity from day one. So yes, there needs to be a standardization in many things to get the basics right, even instruments, right? Even talim. But this is not an art form that can be taught in a classroom or standardized. At the end of it, yeah, you do your high school as a standardized situation, but after that, for higher studies, it has to be about individual. But even from day one, the standardized study from even day one, teachers need to have a conversation with their students. Teachers need to listen to their students to figure out what is their uniqueness and help them fulfill that. Roger Federer, who's one of the greatest tennis champions in the world, would have been an awful accountant or really bad doctor. The reason why he became this great tennis maestro is because somebody early on found out what he was good and encouraged him in that path. So if you need to do, one as a teacher needs to figure that out. Sorry, I'm taking too much time.
No. It's fine. It's a very important point that you have made. And I think,
I just want to add one small thing. Like,
sure,
I just,
please.
Because there are some things that exactly bang on just match with what my experience is. So I cannot just, I'm not able to sit quiet there. So coming to what Karthik ji said about how a guru has, how, of course, Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab had made each disciple sound different. Like when I come to see my guru, when I talk about Guruji, one thing that Karthik ji said, he is still guiding me, just as, I feel the same thing, although he moved on in 2010, but I have because he even told me this, that aankh band karke jab bhi bajayegi, mujhe samne hi paegi. So that was something that he has assured me. So I believe that he is guiding me every minute. So what he used to say was that you are, so once I was just expressing, Guruji, I'm really grateful, I got you as my guru and you are, so he said, aisa kyun sochti hai? You should not even think like that, because from every student, I am learning as to how to guide that person, because you are giving the idea. It is your personality which is responding. I am giving you many ideas, exposing you to many ideas of rag development, or just even to be how you are as a musician, or to develop your personality, whatever it is, then you are responding in a certain way. Now that response is what I am developing and I am giving you back. And that is something that you are, because if your strengths, if I keep on just developing that, then you find a direction. And then slowly the weaknesses will also get converted into your strengths. And if at all there, so that then you find an individual way. And he would constantly advise us to not to try and copy any of the maestros. He would say, listen, but never try to copy anybody. Just let that impression be formed in your subconscious, but when it comes through you, then it will be your own expression. So that was a very clear instructions that I feel that that has really helped me a lot, and I feel that everybody would be thinking.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Deep.
One thing I want to say, that when this that word guru came into this conversation, we all are like, want to speak, because it's the same thing. We love our guru so much. We have so much to say. We have so much good experiences with our gurus, so that we want to share. But another thing I want to add, I am blessed because I born in my guru's house. I'm learning from my father. So in that case, it's not possible to practice wrong things, a wrong way of practice, because somewhere in the upstairs he is listening and he will come and rectify me. So that's why we that rectification is very needed. And for the other students it's very difficult, because they may get only once in a week time, but the whole of the week they are practicing, the fingering may be wrong or something, so there is no, the process of correcting, it's very less. Because if you compare to me, because I'm already there 24 hours, my guru is there, so that means 24 hours I'm getting scolded by him. So that's another story. There's the blessings, but this is the thing. This is a God gift to me, that I born in this family. So that's just wanted to add these things.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this topic, that what you mentioned, is multifaceted. and it goes in different levels. And in one level, often what happens with people who are born in their guru's house, they also get compared with their gurus, and they say, oh, not like that, not like him, and which is so difficult for them. That's one side. Other side is that, Kartik Bhaiya, please.
No, after you, please finish.
The other side is what Deep, what you said, and also I feel what happens is that's why we had the older Guru Shishya Parampara thing, where the student used to stay. It was apprenticeship. You have to stay with your guru. You have to become the disciple. But these days it's not possible. The world has changed. How we make perhaps we have, those people who are teaching, they have to make a difference. For example, Deep, what you have received from your guru, perhaps you have to try it out with your own students, where you have them over in your house for months and try to help them out. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Taking cue from there, Deep, I wanted to present some music files as well that might be helpful.
Please,
so after you say,
please.
then we are going to add that. But before that, I have to ask Kartik Bhaiya what he wanted to say.
I think it's a topic for the next session.
Exactly.
So I'm going to hold off on it. Okay.
It's a huge topic. So my student Sharnavo is in the back room, so I'll request him to play Ustad Barakatullah Khan Sahab's book Kalyan. So this is what Senia Baj traditionally used to be. So we have a little clip of that. So we are going to put it for our audiences. Sharnavo.
Can you guys hear?
You have to listen through your phones. So the recording was already played. Unfortunately for us, we couldn't listen because it's streamed through another platform.
Actually, I'm just I'm doing the Zoom in my phone, so I think I couldn't hear the recording. Yeah.
No, none of us here, but it was for the audience. Okay. We all know about this composition. Of course, it's the iconic that one, that iconic composition of
So one point I will make, hopefully, which we can continue in the next discussion, is that we did not discuss Carnatic music because we think of it as polarized, north-south British construction. So we need to think of this as such a seamless tradition, which has produced two fantastic thought. Barakatullah Khan Sahib spent roughly 30 years in Mysore Maharaja's palace, just FYI. So he's a seminal figure, and Abdul Karim Khan Sahib spent a lot of time with Meena Dharnamal, who is one of the greatest Veena players. So there's a lot of connection here to be made in the way those artists were also so open-minded. And my Guruji, of course, bringing in so many ragas, from the south and making it a part of our common vocabulary. If we think about Kirwani, we think about Charukeshi, we think about so many. I mean, the examples go on and on and on. But anyway, I think this is not something we should just speak in the light of Hindustani music and Drupad and Ghazal, but we also, Gayaki, but also in the context of Ragam Talam Pallavi. What are the similarities between that and the Drupad Baj? So it's closer than we think, but that connection has to be made because it's very important.
We will go for it, Kartik Bhaiya. I think this one is more like a zameen that we are creating, and later we can do, take individual areas and go deeper into that. I mean, it's such a huge thing when we're talking about Baj. And before even talking about Baj, of course, the instrument and talim comes. So what to do? So we have reached that area where we are reaching the Baj area, and we just played Barakatullah Khan Saab's Bhub Kalyan recording, which is one of the first recordings. And I would request, I think the first recording of sitar music that was done, it was Ustad Vilayat Khan Saab's. So I would request Shauna, my student, to play Ustad Vilayat Khan Saab's Bihag. And rest of us, we're not going to be able to hear it. Yeah, Hiran.
We can't hear it, so can we hear it on Facebook Live?
Yeah, let's put our microphones off and then we'll listen to it so that we can speak
Sounds
about
good, because it's very weird to talk about music that we haven't heard.
Yeah, I don't have my phone, unfortunately, so I will just pay my respects to the.
When the music will
So that was the iconic Bihag recording. And we have many other recordings. We'll just put them up. And before we go for the other recordings, we are going to take on the same composition played by Ustad Barakatullah Khan Saab by Ustad Inayat Khan Saab. So these are all few seconds of music. So the same composition through him. So Shauna, if you could put it. Well, I think I made a mistake. I think it was not. We cannot find the recording, but no worries. Let's move on. What I would suggest to people is that who are interested, they can go to YouTube, and there is the same composition, so you can listen to it from there. And let's move to another gharana. we could not bring representation of that gharana over here. Is the Darbhanga gharana. So let's go for Pandit Rameshwar Pathakji's Puriya, Sharnavu, if we have it. So we are facing, we are going through a learning curve over here, because we realized that we would be, we had thought that we would be able to hear ourselves, but we could not. So we are using our phones to listen to the live feed. And so there's going to be a little bit of delay. And Karthik Bhaiya doesn't have his phone right now with him, so he's not able to listen. So what we are going to do is that we're going to put one last recording. This one would be Ustad. Let's put Ustad Yusuf Ali Khan Saab's playing.
I think fortunately I have heard them before, so.
Yes. We have to. Yeah. So, Sharnavo. So that was Ustad Yusuf Ali Khan was playing, and any student of music should be listening to all these great maestros. There is so much to know, so much to learn, and you can also see how compositions have evolved over time. And we could say, we could hold on to one set of compositions as perhaps the purest ones, but if you see music, I would say music has kept on evolving, and compositions have kept on evolving, and the way of saying has also kept on evolving. So perhaps we are very fortunate that we're able to listen to both Ustad Barakatullah Khan Sahab, Ustad Imdad Khan Sahab, because of the recordings that they had made, and also to the present day maestros. So, and that is such a wonderful thing that we have. And Deep, you wanted to say something, if you could say.
Yeah, I think exactly, Shubhamdada. I think music is a language. So, in like every language has to change in 100 years or something, a period of time. So, music is a language. So, it will change and in this times means in a span of time, slowly. So, it will evolve. It will be not a stagnant thing. So, the same bandish maybe some people will play in different way, but the bandish will be the same. So, this is what I want to add. This is my feeling, I think.
That is lovely. So, I mean, we'll make a we'll sum up everything that we have said, and perhaps we'll call it a day for today, because subject is huge, and if we keep on going, we'll need many more cups of coffee and perhaps biryani and other.
At least, and 2 days at least, at the minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so lovely, it's so lovely that we could at least make this effort to make this happen. I mean, if we were all there in the same room and there were people listening to us, we could have put music of the old masters, we could explain through our instruments, we could speak about so many things, and one conversation could have gone somewhere, just like in olden days. But yeah, yes.
As Deep Bhai just said, things need to evolve. The pandemic has caused us to rely on these mediums. And as a result, we are all from halfway across the globe sitting together and sharing conversations, sharing ideas. And because of you, I've been able to meet so many people that I admired from a distance, and connect in the same room. So we should always embrace sort of technology evolution. And personally, for me, I have absolutely just loved hearing my elders and my young juniors, not musically just speaking, but age-wise also, and the riveting ideas and beautiful thoughts. And it's really honestly helped me and motivated me to sit down and have a good practice session today and for the next few days, hopefully.
Yeah, but we are going to do a lot of, let's do Char Mombatti ka riyaz now. Let's start now.
I'm too old for that now.
Aryan, you wanted to say something. Go on.
Yeah, Shubhanilda, I have a request. May we have a second session of this of the same team? I mean, where we could only just focus and just with only the music content. I mean, everybody. I think the senior maestros, Karthik ji, Hidayat ji, Anupama ji, everything, Deepta, and where we can just 10 or 5-10 minutes we can show something that we have learned. I mean, the uniqueness of the styles and everything. So because it's a huge subject, I mean, you can't cover all everything in a single day. So if we have, it's a request on behalf of everybody. I think everybody will agree.
Yes, absolutely. I think what I feel personally is that this endeavor to start Sitar and Us is to bring awareness to a few people who might be guessing. Of course, the ones who know, they don't need to know more. I mean, they already know something, right? But there are quite a few all around the globe who do not know anything, but they still love this music. Perhaps we can bring them closer, to music, and that's the endeavor. And if we could express through our instruments, if we could explain a few things through our instruments as well, we would be doing that. And of course, we are going to bring this team together, and all the other people who have come before us, all the other musicians who have come before us, we are going to keep on doing that. I mean, there is something to learn from everybody. That is the whole aim. And if we can, without prejudice, if we could express freely and explain a few things the way we understand, I think it's going to bring clarity to a lot of people who perhaps would benefit from that. So I'm so thankful to all of you that you, graced this occasion. Yes, Deep and Kartik Bhaiya, you had something to say, please.
Firstly, one quick remark I wanted to make is I'm so happy we all met today and had such a fruitful discussion. This is absolutely wonderful. And we should continue on various themes, as you mentioned. Not to leave this on a pessimistic note at all, but we should be happy that we are an assemblage of very serious musicians here, because we live also in a time when technology is very harmful, and it is also being exploited for commercial gain by people who especially are in a place of privilege, progeny and this and that. So it's complicated. So I think it's important to open that up, because I think we do have a two-tier system. One is legacy through family and discipleship. So there are problems which equally should be talked about. We should be very open. If we don't do that, I think we are being very hypocritical to this conversation. So sorry, I'm being blunt, but that is something that has to be said and talked. So I hope, but by respect to all of you.
No, I should really say something to that, because I come from a lineage, and I feel very strongly about this, that fortunately or unfortunately for music, it's not like a dynasty, a royal dynasty, where the king dies and the son sits on the throne. Music is a legacy that is carried forward only by talent, and then people that receive that talent. So regardless of how much media or in today's day and age and how much promotion we do, it is a very temporary glitch in history, because music is very big. If we talk about something slightly easier like Bollywood music, we always remember the yesteryears of Bollywood music as being great music. But how many songs do you remember? 50, 60, 100, maybe 200 songs. And there were certainly more songs than that. And the reason why we've forgotten about them is because they were no good. So today, the only musicians that will remain in history and be recognized are ones that actually had the caliber, regardless of whose sons and whose daughters they were. So that's the one fortunate thing.
So nothing, I was not making anything personal. So just please don't interpret it that way. All I was saying is, it's a complicated subject, and the access to knowledge is definitely a different situation in a situation where you have it in your household as a tradition versus you're coming in from a non-musical background family or whatever that is. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. I think it opens up a whole nother set of healthy controversies, but it's good to talk about it.
Absolutely. Kartik Bhaiya, I mean, what you meant to say is that it's a wide spectrum. If we are talking about music, we should be talking about everything instead of just talking about a few things. That's really nice, and I appreciate that. Deep, you had something to say? And
I'm so sorry to interject like this. I actually have to run. So I'm sorry. I know I'll be wrapping up in 5 minutes. Lekin mere ko pahunchna hai kahin pe. My deepest pranam in regards to all of you all. It has just been an absolute pleasure, and Subranil bhai, a huge hug to you for making me a part of this. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye to everyone.
Bye.
And let's call it a day. We had a wonderful time together. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhani bhai, and everybody on the panel.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Namaste.
One thing, Sumanta, before you end, A big thank to Swarnabha for for this technical support. He's a wonderful artist and also a very technical guy. And thank you, Swarnabha, for making this technical support for this technical support.
Okay. Namaskar. Bye bye.